Good morning, world. This is Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV's World Edition, soon to be a part of the Roku network in 2022. I am today greeting you from a Starbucks as I'm doing the duties of a father, taking one of my children to a medical appointment. So please bear with me, I'll be a little quieter today. And before we begin my monologue, I want to remind everyone that this evening at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be continuing our discussion of the WOTE, the worst president of the United States of all time, as we continue our discussion and get ready to unveil, based on our LinkedIn poll, the winner of the worst president of all time on President's Day. So please tune in to the network at 8 o'clock evening, and I'll be here with Mark Lee as we moderate this wonderful program. Today, I want to dedicate my monologue to revisiting the life of Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop of Canterbury. I will have to leave a little early today, but here it goes. You know, we remember Desmond Tutu for the intellectual capacity that he had, his integrity, and the invincible way in which he took down apartheid, the South African government's policy of segregation, racial segregation. It took him 6 decades to fight to see in his own lifetime a South Africa which could elect Nelson Mandela, the president of this country, in 1997. When asked what his greatest achievement was, he said, other than the birth of his child, seeing Mandela take the oath of office was the greatest moment in his life. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984, and President Barack Obama awarded him the 2009 Presidential Medal of Honor. He also was a professor at Emory University in the late mid 90s, worked alongside former President Jimmy Carter, doing great things with the Carter Center all around the world. But as President Biden said, Archbishop Tutu's work went far beyond the borders of his own nation. It transponded and went all across the world. Today, there are LGBTQ advocates who mourn the loss of this great leader. There are those who fight for Palestinian rights because Desmond Tutu, in the later part of his career, fought for the rights of Palestinians. And also climate change and climate activists, very active in what we can do as a world to save our planet. I could go on, but as in the words of the current Archbishop of Cape Town, Thobo Makaba, this was a man who led his life with moral strength, moral courage, clarity, and purpose. And how fitting is it that we mourn the loss of this great leader at a time, as Fareed Zakaria says, where we're seeing the world and our country suffer from a democratic recession, where in countries like Sudan, Tunisia, Venezuela, the Southern Hemisphere, Afghanistan, all around the world, and here in the United States, we're seeing the rights of those downtrodden, those who are oppressed, the rights of our ability and the minorities to vote, all brought into question. We must remember and honor the legacy of Desmond Tutu, and remember this, that as President Zelensky said in the Ukraine, democracy is something we must never give up on. We must always fight for. But it's not only the governments that fight for it, it's ordinary citizens like Desmond Tutu, ordinary men who in their life can do extraordinary things, but by the way they live their lives. Only then, if we had more Desmond Tutus in the world, perhaps we would not be suffering in such a democratic recession. We thank him for his life of service to those who are oppressed with human rights. And I'll close with this. Finally, he served as the chairman of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which Mandela appointed him to, and spent much of his life focusing on the human rights abuses of apartheid in his own country. I could go on, but may he rest in peace, and may us work together to find more Desmond Tutus out there to fight democratic recessions. Joining me now today in the brief time I have with you is Mark Lee, the co-host of World Edition with me, radio celebrity, radio personality, and soon to be a part of the globe of a U.S. international TV network with me. Mark Lee, welcome to the show. And we have,
Glad to join you. Yeah, that's a very important thing that we're about to be part of that network and all of that. So that's going to be wonderful. I mean, we're already part of the network, but we'll be on an international platform and all of that. And you're so right about Bishop Tutu. When I think about a term that is out there that has been used among our religious leaders. His name is one that I actually think a lot about. And I've got friends that actually practice what I believe he was a believer in as well. And it's this concept called liberation theology, which is actually still a belief in religion and a belief in the religious principles, but a belief that you can use those principles in order to make change and make a difference and all of that. I would argue that Reverend Barber and definitely the late Martin Luther King were also practitioners of that as well, because they definitely, followed the principles of their religion in a lot of ways, but they also use those principles in order to make change and in order to make radical change. And that is something that was definitely going
yes,
on
and
in
I
the
forgot
case
to,
of
yeah,
Bishop Tutu.
exactly. And I guess, what I'll say is that I forgot to weave it in my talk today because I've got a little bit of a headache. But I would liken it into the analogy I've given before of what I call the moral Jedi. You
Right.
know, individuals in the history of humankind who, in the greatest moments of adversity, saw this spark of light that lives within us. And the Star Wars legacy calls it the Force. But the bottom line is the Force existed in people like Desmond Tutu, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mother Teresa. The list goes on and on. And that we can make the world a better place. And, I think a lot of times we look at things that aren't in our control, but we forget that some of these great men were ordinary people, uh,
Exactly.
and they didn't stop at trying to share that light with the world. And that's what I think we need to remember about Desmond Tutu, and hope that our children and our grandchildren can read of these figures, that they were not just these historical figures, but that they were men and women who walked in this earth, who did great things because they wanted to live their lives with purpose. And I think it's very hard in today's age and era to live our lives with purpose because we are just so focused on paying the bills, getting to work, getting ourselves healthy, and it's not easy. It's hard to get from Monday to Friday. But
Yeah.
imagine these great leaders that were changing the world not only for what they could see today. So I may close out with that later in the week, as I just got inspired with my poetic speaking style.
No,
But
that's very poetic and
mo-
that's
mo-
very good and
moving
everything.
a
And
little
it's
slow
great.
this morning, so I might add that on Friday. I just had the thought came to me. I don't know why I wasn't thinking about it this morning, but we have others possibly joining us, but um, we are gonna we are going to have our famous tonight, the vote,
Oh,
and
yes.
I don't know how you're gonna get prepared for that.
Oh yeah, I got to get prepared for that, and of course, I got to talk about some of the results. I'm going to talk about that in a minute and everything. The one thing about Bishop Tutu, compared to some of those other leaders you were talking about, was that, well, I guess Gandhi did as well. Was they lived what people would consider a relatively long life, a well-lived life, but definitely a relatively long life. I think Bishop Tutu might have been in his 80s or 90s or something like that. But if you think about it, some of those leaders that were so courageous. They also knew that they might not live that long. I think Martin Luther King Jr. definitely knew that he was taking a very unpopular stand, among some people and everything, and that he might not survive by being such a radical individual and all of that. And at this day and time, we wouldn't consider the concept of equal rights and what he was fighting for to be overly radical, but at the time that he was up there was a lot of forces that were fighting against it. So they would have considered it very radical. And the same thing with Bishop Tutu. So the fact that he lived to have this very relatively long life compared to what others have and everything is also a testament to the man and a testament to his legacy as well. Because, I'm sure that there were a lot of people out there that were, trying to target him, both within his groups of folks that he was supporting, as well as those that were
Yes,
fighting against him and everything. So the
and
fact
and
that
and I just got a text. Yes, I will be. My monologue tomorrow will be the moral Jedi. I will be working on tightening that up a little
Oh yeah,
bit.
definitely.
People
You got
like
to
that
tighten that up and
concept.
everything.
We'll
And I
put
know
some
you got
Star
that
Wars
text, so I
music
know
in
you're
the.
getting ready to bounce off, and hopefully some other
Well,
people.
no, I got a
Will,
few more minutes. I'm just waiting
okay.
for my daughter to text me. Why don't we go into the your thoughts and insights about the vote this evening, and then maybe before I leave, we'll chime in with some other things going on in the world.
Oh yeah, definitely. We can definitely do that and everything. Well, like I said, I've had some very interesting comments with people about the vote, including some names that I had not even thought about. That's one of the other fascinating things about this. You know, the worst president out there and everything. When one of the things that we've found is that people have some very interesting ideas of people that they would like added to that list. I had never thought about it, but I think somebody had mentioned that they thought that Ulysses Grant should be on that list and everything. And that was somebody that I had not really thought about. And then, of course, we had people that wanted to add other names that I have not gotten to yet. Doesn't mean I won't get to them, but I just haven't got to them yet, including, like, of course, the Bushes and maybe even some of the other ones that are out there as well, and all of that. So it's been quite interesting getting some of the answers that I have heard from people and some of their responses. And despite the fact that Nick said he could not share it, we are still getting comments on the poll that was put out there. It looks like I got some comments earlier in the today, and maybe even some on some other days, and all of that. So we are getting comments. As a matter of fact, a person just wrote in a few minutes ago saying that Reagan destroyed the middle class. So they were definitely
Well,
wanting
I think
Reagan
it's
on there.
it's hard. I'm going to do my review later today. I've got a busy day today.
Right.
But I think we need to look at the criteria of the presidency, right? I mean,
Right.
you think about it. I mean, when you take the oath of office, the president, 46 presidents, I will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's it. And
Right.
the only requirement is that you're 35, you're born in the United States, and you serve as the president, right? I think there's a lot of expectations we have on the presidency in terms of their ability to deal with crisis.
Right.
That is one criteria. Did they deal with crisis, and how do what makes a successful president? Is it the team around them? Is it
Mm.
the people that they listen to? And then I think also security in the world.
Right.
And during wartime, do you have a president that's building alliances and leading? So Roosevelt, one of the highest rated presidents, Lincoln, who saved the Union. Nobody is perfect. And then you've got presidents with the economy. And when the economy is not doing well and people aren't working, that's what brought Bill Clinton in. Remember, it's the economy,
Right.
stupid, right? Running against a wartime president, one who prevailed in the Gulf War, but lost in the economy. And so I think it's very confusing to me, for people to say Obama is the worst when the Gallup polls show him at 50, hovering around 52%.
Right.
Uh, Bill Clinton around 55.1%.
Hmm.
Um, I think Obama did have some significant wins under his belt.
Right.
Let's not forget that he took out Bin Laden. He was able to work during the first recession to pull us out.
Hmm.
Of course, it was a bailout, and there was some criticism of that. But I think it's all really relative in terms of what our expectations are of the presidency. This is not a commander. This isn't like you put in a president and all your problems are going to be solved. They've got to work with Congress. They've got to work with. So I don't know. That's just my thought.
No,
It's
that's a very good thought. As a matter of fact, Audrey Pierce, who apparently is somebody involved with legal field, since they are on LinkedIn saying that they're in litigation support, said that for them, this one was a little difficult for those who don't read any history, either current or past, because they said that Jackson was a racist and they called him a destructive, and that word that begins with an A that is also used for a part of your backside and everything. And they said that Trump really didn't do a job, as his handlers let us know, even before he left office, and he never wanted to be opposed or to learn a thing, but he did manage to keep a cult following against all odds. And they also added that Carter had his problems and missteps, but earns great respect today. And they said that Obama, like so many others, had ideas and promises before getting into office, only to find themselves hogtied on what the big chair can actually do. And they also asked me to write a question with a tiny bit more nuance and all of that, but that was just their criticism of the way that the question was framed and all of that. But they do bring up a good point. A lot of times, folks may have principles and ideals when they come in, but a lot of times they themselves don't even know the whole way that the system works and the whole leadership that goes on, not just among their advisors, like you were talking about, but also among the folks that are their um, political opponents as well as those that are their allies. They've got to learn how to negotiate that as well as those kind of factors like lobbies and other things that are in there as well. And a lot of times, if they're coming from some of our political leaders have come out of the political system, so they might have a better understanding of it. But there's quite a few others that came totally from the outside. I mean, Obama was a grassroots organizer and didn't really, as far as I know a lot about the political landscape. Carter was a person who came out of agriculture, and there were a number of others that had not necessarily gone through that legal system, even in their own states, of having worked with like being a governor or being a senator or something like that, as we know that some of the presidents of the past have. So there's also
Yeah.
been the whole concept of the outsider. That's kind of what Trump showed it, was that he was an outsider, and therefore, even though he was a
And then
there's a
and,
business leader.
and before we end up, I have to leave early today. But before I close out, I'm gonna, and I hope we have other guests coming, Mark. If not, I apologize. It's one of
Oh, no
those
problem.
things, parental duties. But I think you have presidents like Bill Clinton who, came in as outsiders, but were able
Right,
to leverage the economy with their charisma. So
right,
certain presidents like Obama and JFK just came in as outsiders. Sure,
exactly.
they hadn't been U.S. senators for a very long time, but they had the charisma, they had the message. Obama, yes, we can. Kennedy, the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, and inspired the Peace Corps and led the space missions, right? Seeking the frontier of space. Uh, and so, but then you have the outsiders like Bill Clinton. That's what made him unique. He was an outsider, a very unknown governor in Arkansas,
Right.
but came in quickly and was able to have a very compelling message. And then I think, so I think Joe Biden has, I still believe that he shouldn't be in contention for the worst president because I think in this award, uh, it's not really an award, but in order to be recognized as the worst president, you have to have completed one term. Uh, let's not forget that he's only been in office for not even a year. It has been
Exactly.
one long year. Think about how much has happened this year, right?
Yeah.
Um, and and there's really not much going on in the world today. I think these are some of the holidays,
Well, no,
although,
there's actually a lot going on in the world, and one of them I'm a little afraid to
yeah,
talk about
please.
because it's something that we also deal with, and it's come up several times in this news and everything, which is the fact that even in the middle of the holiday season, there are incidences that reflect the nature of guns and the nature of violence in our own society, meaning the society of America and all of that. So apparently, there was a killing spree in Denver, and that gunman killed four and injured three, including a police officer. So
Oh,
that happened earlier today, or actually not that. Yesterday it was. So at
yeah,
least four people
yesterday.
are
Sorry,
dead,
I just
as
losing
well as
count
the
with all the gun
suspected
violence,
gunman
and
after
we're
a
having.
cross-city shooting spree happened, and the suspect, who had not been publicly identified, began his shooting spree around 5 p.m. in central Denver, where he killed two men and shot two women and shot a man. So he killed two women and shot a man. And then there was a press conference that was being held in relationship to that yesterday. So that was something that was going on. So that's actually something that I know a lot of folks are still very much concerned about, just the whole idea of violence in our society and how accessible guns are and things along those lines. And I need to learn a little bit more about the news story. I don't know what you heard about it, but that was a major news story that was happening all the way on the West
I
Coast.
apologize for that. I lose track of the gun violence because there's just so much gun violence that occurs, and we just have to, make sure that we're, uh, we could spend a whole show on gun rights and gun violence and the Second Amendment, but at the end of the day, obviously, we have a problem in America with guns getting in the hands of the wrong folks, and We just got to figure out how we can come to some kind of agreement that we have a problem, because we're at the point now we're losing count. I mean, we even had in Durham at South Point. I spoke to Durham City Council member Mark Anthony Middleton at the Black History Forum PBS Carolina party last week, and he was saying they were looking at increasing staffing levels.
Mhm.
And it's tough. But I got to run early today. I really apologize. Want to get to the doctor's office. I don't want my daughter waiting on me.
Oh
I
yeah.
will be back tomorrow. Well, I'll be back this evening. And Mark, do we have any guests chiming in? Or are we going to end early today?
I'll keep it running for a while. There are no guests coming in as of yet, but I'll keep it running for at least a few minutes with some of the news stories and everything. And I may reach out to Sasha and some of the other people to see if they're available. And if they're not, then I may wind up ending it
Well,
early because
my
we do know
my
about the duties of family and
my,
all of that. But
my
there are a
closing
couple of other stories that I can talk about,
my
such as
closing
a
mess my
Hartford City
closing
man.
message tomorrow. We'll continue our discussion of inspiring leaders around the world, like Desmond Tutu, what we
Right.
can learn. We're going to talk about giving during the holiday season, and
Mhm.
as we, what is the process of finding charities? What are the things what are some organizations we can turn to help us categorize that? And as we approach the end of the year, maybe a retrospective look back on some of the great leaders in the world, in addition to Archbishop Tutu, that we've lost. We lost the Lion of the Senate, Bob Dole. We lost Colin Powell. Hank Aaron
Oh,
died
wow.
this year. A lot of actors and actresses. I didn't realize that Norm Coleman from Saturday Night Live passed away.
Mm.
So going to be bringing that to attention as we remember some of these icons we lost in 2021. And thank you all so much. Look forward to being a part of this team, and don't know whether the team is we're going to become Roku World Edition or Pot TV World Edition. I don't know, but all I know is that Mark Lee and I are hosting on Roku uh, a national subscription service. So I think there's a possibility if I use my Roku and I turn on my TV. I got YouTube TV, but I got these other things. So my knowledge is that if you get the Roku streaming service, the Roku channel, you will be able to watch our show on TV.
Yep, that's very true. Folks will be able to watch it on TV. That'll be a great thing for folks to check out, and everything's looking forward to it. You know, it's like Nick is saying that could be March and all of that, but I'm hoping that it might even happen earlier, maybe as early as February. But I do know that he's having a meeting in the not too distant future with some of those developers, so we might have a better idea by the end of the week as to the exact launch date and all of that. But I do know that we are looking forward to it. And a lot of other people are looking forward to it as well. And of course, we've got great discussions going on and all of that. And of course, we did know that Nick had a meeting earlier, so I was aware of that. Was not aware that the Sandman was going to grab me and all of that, because even us news folks have to sometimes
Well,
have those incidences where the Sandman and other things grabbed us. So I do
well,
apologize for
folks,
those that are
may
watching if
the
we started a
may,
little bit late and all of that, but
may the
that
light
happens.
and love
We
of our
can deal.
hearts, may the light and love of our hearts always lift us out in darkness. And yeah, I'm a really skinny driven guy, but yes, even I have gained weight this holiday season. Put on 4 pounds, too much apple pie. I'm going back on a diet, get back down to my tennis playing weight.
Well, a
I'm
friend of
anal
mine
about
just
my weight.
yeah, appreciate you. A friend of mine just recently completed a one of those water diets and everything, and it seems like they have definitely worked well on that, and it seems like they have done great in that regard. So I think they were doing like a 4 day type of one of those water diets where you're very much, I guess it's limited food and the right amount of water consumption. But it sounds like they have dropped the some weight and are also feeling much better about themselves and all of that. And I know I need to get something done about
Yeah, me
getting
too.
some of this weight off as well.
I
And I
think it's
need to
just
do something
water,
that you do
reducing
really well.
sugar.
I need to
I'm,
do
I'm
more
fasting. Well,
exercise. I don't even know how you do it because, like I said, I know that I do a decent amount of walking, not as much as I used to do because I used to be a very avid walker, but I need to get back into walking. Shucks, I remember walking one time on a regular basis from like uh near South Square, speaking of malls, all the way to from Central. So that's a good several
yeah.
mile walk and all that. And I
Well,
even
yeah.
used
It's a
to be able to
combination.
walk from
It's
like
a com- it's
Haytide to the Duke area, and that's probably like about those walks are probably anywhere from 3 to 5 mile
yeah,
walks, and I used to do
it's a
that on a pretty
combination.
consistent basis. But I've got to
Well,
get better at
listen.
that.
May the light and love of our hearts always lift us out of the darkness. Thank you all so much. See you tomorrow on Pod TV's World Edition. Okay.
All right, sounds
God
good.
bless.
Oh, you're forgetting your tagline, even though
Oh,
I'll use it as
yes.
well,
Oh,
even
yes,
though
yes. Guys, yeah, I'm sorry. Um, from our family to yours,
Yeah.
we wish you all the best as we close out the year. And may we always remember the light and love of our hearts will always lift us out of the darkness. Thank you for being a part of our Pod TV family here on World Edition. This is Steve Rao signing off. I will see you tomorrow morning. And that is my new signature line.
Yep, great signature
Thank
line.
you.
So we're gonna let you get on out of here. I
And
might talk about a couple of
I'm
more
going
of
to
the
do,
news
and I'll
items,
do,
and you're gonna take care of fatherly duties. But we'll definitely see you on tomorrow. And I
okay.
believe Nick said that he would be here on Wednesday as well. So
And real
looking
quickly,
forward to getting you on out of here.
we're going to do a live practice when I open up. And it'll say, when I open up, I'm going to have to, now that I'm a national TV host, I'm going to have to say, welcome to Roku's World Edition.
Mhm.
This is Steve Rao, your host, and we welcome you to the show today. Today, we'll be discussing, and then boom. That's, a little, that's what Fareed Zakari does. He's always like, welcome to Goba Public Square. I'm Fareed Zakaria, your host, right? So, welcome to World Edition, Roku. I'm Steve Rao, your host. Today, we will be discussing, and then I go right into my monologue. First, before we begin, here's my take.
Hey,
So,
that sounds like a great way to begin everything. And I know you're walking
yeah,
out the door and everything.
I'm tightening it up a little bit.
Oh
So,
yeah, tighten it up. That's
all
a
right,
great thing. But I know
all right.
before you walk out the door, because you definitely got to take care of that. And of course, I'll talk about some COVID stuff and at least get us to the 45-minute mark, if not the whole
Thank
30
you. I'm
or
so
hour and
sorry I had to leave
everything.
early. It's just
Oh,
duty
no, you're
calls.
doing perfectly well. You're doing perfectly
Thank
good.
you all. I'll see you
But
tomorrow, and that will be my new signature line ending every week. Thank you. See you
sounds
tonight at
good.
8 o'clock.
I'll
Thanks.
see you tonight at 8 for
Yeah.
sure. And
Thank you.
definitely I'll continue some of this conversation, but I'll see you tonight at
Okay.
8 and we'll see what other news items I see. And if anybody else pops in, I see we've got at least a couple of folks watching because I can see the eyeballs
Yeah.
watching on this side and everything. So we've
Wonderful.
got some folks watching and hopefully they're enjoying our banter and conversation. I know that
Thank you,
one of the things
folks.
that goes on in the world that I know that even Steve um, knows about and everything, and it's one of the stories that I'll bring up is that definitely there are issues not just with guns but also with drugs in our community as well. So one of the stories that I'm going to bring up and talk about is a Hartford City man that agreed to plead guilty to dealing in the whole meth community and all of that. And I do know that that can be a very detrimental drug to our society because I've actually got friends that have been involved in that as well as maybe even some relatives that have gone through that as well. So that is a news item that a lot of times is very much not reported as much as it probably should be, and all of that, which is some of the ways that these things impact our society. So, a Hartford City man has agreed to plead guilty to dealing in meth. So, Seth Ryan Buffenbarger, and he's a very young man at 30, has been accused of selling both heroin and meth to an informant for the Hartford City Police Department on two occasions in April of 2020. A few days after those transactions, the informant told officers that Buffenbarger was no longer responding to his phone calls or text messages. Buffenbarger was arrested on April 19th, 2020, and was charged in Blackford Circuit Court with 2 counts each of dealing in meth and dealing in a narcotic drug, all level 5 felonies that each carried up to 6 years in prison. This month, the Hartford City man agreed to plead guilty on to one of the meth dealing charges. The deal calls for a 5-year sentence, with Buffenbarger serving up to 3 years on electronic home detention, followed by a term on probation. So the other 3 dealing counts would be dismissed. Buffenbarger, who previously lived in Muncie, was scheduled to plead guilty and be sentenced to a hearing last week, but it was rescheduled for February 14th. The Blackford County man's records includes convictions for attempted residential entry, battery, burglary, false informant, and theft. So that's just an incident of that part in that part of the world and all of that. But we do know that a lot of times we don't hear enough about some of the things that are going on in the sense of drugs in our community and how they can be impacting our community as well. So if it was good enough for the Yahoo News to make their news coverage, I think it's good enough for me to talk about as well. So that was one of the stories that came out today as well. And then there was one about the court system, but this time coming out of Alaska. So, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland has named career federal attorney John Kunn as the top federal law enforcement officer in Alaska on a temporary basis. It's the first time since 2006 and the second time since statehood that the Justice Department has nominated a temporary U.S. attorney for Alaska. The position is normally filled by a presidential nominee who is subject to confirmation by the U.S. Senate, and an assistant U.S. attorney has filled the spot on an interim basis since February. Cohn's appointment was announced Monday by the U.S. Department of Justice, which said he previously served as U.S. Attorney in the Western District of Kentucky, as well as in a variety of national roles. In a brief interview Monday, Cohn said he has literally done virtually everything a lawyer can do in a U.S. Attorney's office, including civil work, violent crime prosecution, public corruption cases, and white-collar crimes. Cohn has no connection to Alaska, and in-state attorneys contacted Monday said that lack of local experience is unusual, if not unprecedented. I do think that is somewhat unusual, Cohn said, but it does happen on occasion nationally with these interim appointments. President Joe Biden asked for the resignation of Brian Schroeder, Alaska's former U.S. attorney, in February. Schroeder was among 56 U.S. attorneys asked to resign during the transition to the Biden administration, and he was replaced on an interim basis by Brian Wilson, Alaska's first assistant U.S. attorney. Federal law prohibits Wilson from serving more than 300 days as interim U.S. attorney, and that time limit resulted in Cohn's appointment. Former U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions made similar temporary replacements across the country in 2008. If Biden does not nominate a permanent U.S. attorney within 120 days, the U.S. District Court for Alaska may name a long-term temporary replacement until a permanent U.S. attorney is nominated and confirmed. So yes, even in that judicial system, you have to go through those confirmations, even on those kind of jobs that are on more of the state level and all of that. So it does look like he's going to have to find somebody that can be appreciated and liked by folks on both sides of the aisle. But at least he's got somebody there in Alaska that is temporarily geared to work that job and temporarily geared to be involved in all of that. So that is one of the things that is going on in that regards. And, Georgia also is oftentimes in the news, and we have some legal news from them as well. So a new judge for Augusta's Judicial Circuit Juvenile Court has been selected, as has a second judge who will serve for the next year thanks to COVID relief funds set aside for the Georgia courts. Willie Saunders will become the newest chief judge for the circuit, now composed of Richmond and Burke counties. Saunders is to be sworn in on this afternoon. He will replace Amanda Heath, who was recently picked by the governor to serve on the Superior Court bench. Saunders is no stranger to juvenile court. He was first appointed to serve as a part-time juvenile court judge in 2006 and began serving full-time in 2008. Saunders held the position until 2012, when he wasn't reappointed after an unsuccessful judicial campaign for Superior Court judge. Chief Judge Daniel J. Craig announced Saunders' appointment by the 5 Superior Court judges on Monday afternoon. They also selected Shanette Lewis to temporarily serve as a juvenile court judge. Lewis is the chief assistant solicitor for Richmond County State Court. COVID relief funds received for the judicial system will be used to fund her position, according to Craig. So that is some of the news coming out of that particular part of the world in the sense of Georgia and all of that. So there's always things happening in that regard, and always fascinating to find some of the things that are going on in the world in that sense. By the way, it looks like, if you're talking about global news, Spain's government has cleared crucial labor reforms and a budget for 2022. So that news is coming out of Madrid. So Spain's left-wing ruling coalition on Tuesday secured its hold on power with the approval of a landmark labor reform backed by both unions and employers, and a new national spending plan for next year that includes a hefty disbursement of pandemic recovery funds. So yes, there are even pandemic recovery funds in other parts of the globe as well. So an array of left-leaning and nationalist lawmakers gave the final go-ahead to Spain's 450 billion euro, that would be 509 billion budget for 2022, which allocates more than half of the funds to education, health, pensions, subsidies, and other forms of social spending. The budget includes the first 20 billion euros of 70 billion euros, or $79.2 billion total, granted to the country from the European Union's COVID 19 Recovery Fund. The European Commission, the executive branch of the 27 nation bloc, transferred to Spain an initial tranche of 10 billion euros, or 11.3 billion, earlier this week. The budget approval is seen as a crucial test of the parliamentary support of the minority coalition of socialists and the anti-austerity United We Can party. By clearing the hurdle in a pretty overwhelming vote, 281 to 62 vote, with one abstention, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez dispelled pressure to call an early election, and he has increased his chances to see out his term, which ends in 2023. So not this year that we're about to enter, but the year following. His cabinet also passed Tuesday a decree that overhauls the country's labor rules, a commitment by Sanchez's government with the European Commission before the end of 2021 in order to secure the next installment of EU pandemic funds. The labor reform reverts business-friendly regulations adopted in 2012 by a previous conservative administration at the height of last decade's sovereign debt crisis. It limits most temporary contracts that are prevalent in the Eurozone's fourth largest economy to a maximum of 3 months, and brings back collective bargaining with unions as the main channel to negotiate contracts. It also adopts the furlough program used to avoid layoffs during the COVID-19 pandemic as a fixed tool for companies to turn to in future crises. So it actually gives them that opportunity as well. So that's very interesting in that regard. And some folks might be interested in some other news that I'm seeing that is quite interesting and all of that. And I see that I've got Kim with me and all of that. Hey, Kim, I'm glad that you popped in. Like I said, Steve was here earlier and all of that. You know, we don't oftentimes think about, I'm getting ready to get to some CDC news in a second. We oftentimes don't think about the kind of relief funds that other countries are given. And apparently Spain is given a decent amount of money as well, and has been trying to do stuff. And of course, they've got party dynamics that go on in their country also. So when I found that story, I found that quite interesting. And I'm sure our listeners may be finding that interesting as well, because that's something that we oftentimes don't talk about. Is we talk about the $1 trillion. Of course, trillion is, I can't even imagine that amount of money, but it is a whole lot of money. But and they're only talking billions, but billions, trillions, it's all big dollars to me and everything. But what do you think about when you hear these kind of things about like these governments that are just spending this kind of money and how they're doing things related to their unions and their political divisions? Because apparently they've got political divisions as well. So it's not just an American problem. Like I said, I was getting that news story from Spain, and it sounds like they have some of the similar things. As I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, I could replace some of these words with America, and it would be the same news story and everything. But
I know. And in the U.S. we have same story, and in Spain we have, and in Europe. So yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting that, but if you think about it as a pandemic, we're all suffering the same crisis. We might be addressing it differently entry, but we're all suffering from the same crisis, the same disruption to supply chain, right? Yeah. We're all suffering from the lack of certain items that we need to survive with. I hope that this does not stop the medicine supply chain that people need on a daily basis. I mean, we've seen a severe disruption to food supply chain. We've seen a severe disruption to computer supply chain, computer parts, automobile parts. I mean, one of the things I find interesting is that they're basically offering me the same price for my used car vehicle as you would a newer vehicle, just because they don't have enough vehicles to sell right now. So yeah, I think that the news is going to be somewhat common. You know, to bring up a fact here, when we discuss stats for domestic violence, it's the same stats in every country, right? It's exactly the same stats. So the problems are the same problems in every country, big or small. We're all humans, right? And we're all creating our own problems. But I mean, I have a big question for you, given some of the news that you are sharing. I get a
Yes.
giggle every time I see someone post something about, oh, these are the problems in the states, and isn't it iconic that it's all Democratic states or all Republican states? And given your vast experience in reporting news or
Mhm.
talking to all the people that you speak with, both Democratic and Republican, do you really believe? I mean, are we that ignorant in this country that we believe just because it's more Democratic state or more Republican state that that's the reason why that state has that problem?
No, I don't think that that's the reason. I think a lot of times it's a couple of things. One, it's the ways that people still have their reasons, and of course, they can be a variety of reasons. I've got friends that have not chosen to take the shot, and sometimes it's because of things that have happened in their own lives, including being with folks that might have died because of what happened when they got shot. And in some cases, they may have had pre-existing conditions. In some cases, it might have been other things that were going on. And of course, there are even some questions about the way that the government has handled things. So I do understand people's fears when they are seeing what's going on with the government's handling and the relationship that exists. And this was actually brought up by one of my guests a couple of days ago between Big Pharma, and I know you even brought it up, between Big Pharma and the farmers and the politicians in general. So there's a lot of that kind of relationships that may cause people to still have reservations about what's going on, and things of that nature. And while that is going on, they may still have some deep reservations and choose not to go ahead and get the shot. I know that Nick has a very adamant opinion about people that are in that kind of attitude. And I think he said he's going to bring on somebody that might be considered part of that camp and everything. But I can also understand from a historical standpoint, and from personal evidence standpoint, why people may have their concerns and their levels of concerns. Like I said, I've stated several times that I definitely got mine and all of that, but I do understand from a personal standpoint why people might still be very much against doing it on whatever reasons. And part of that is because of the way the government is structured and some of the things that have happened historically and some of the things that are out there. And I know that you even know some people in the medical profession that still have their doubts about the way things were handled and all of that. As a matter of fact, I mean, I just learned, and I'm just seeing this news story, and I'm going to try to pull up more information about it. But I mean, when the pandemic first happened, they were saying that if you caught the virus, you were supposed to stay in restriction and isolated for 10 days. And apparently yesterday they cut that down in half. So they're saying that a U.S. health official has said that cutting isolation restrictions for Americans who catch the coronavirus from 10 to 5 days, and is also talking about similarly shortening the time that close contacts that it happened to are needed to quarantine. So that's even a change, and that's a change that's taking place in 2021, at the end of 2021. So if you got people that are seeing those kind of things, then they might be thinking about how this is going to impact them, because apparently this was the CDC, which of course is the main body that is trying to do these decisions, that made this decision about cutting time in half. So, and I get it with, more of our society being healthier, that they might want to change those rules. But at the same time, if you're one that is opposed, I can see where you might be scratching your head at that, going like, wait a minute, for a minute you wanted everybody to be 10 days, and then you want everybody to be 5 days, which is, not even a whole week and everything. And I also understand, having gone through that training to be like a contact tracer, even though I never did any of the contact tracing, that's also going to change people's answers when they go out and do those contact tracing quizzes that you're supposed to do. And they're probably gonna have to do some retraining in that sense, because I know that was part of the whole training process that I went through. That was one of the questions was, how long is the person supposed to stay in quarantine? How long should it be that they were in contact, and a lot of those answers may change if we're changing the rules. And the same thing is happening with the mask mandates. If one state is saying that it is, something that they really want to enforce, in the same with social distancing, and another state is doing opposite rules. And I think a lot of this is political pressures and things along that line. So I think that it is across borders. I don't know that it is because one state is Republican or one state is Democratic, but I do think that it is the groups that are able to lobby successfully with people in their jurisdictions, and also the fact that certain parties in certain places may have certain agendas on their own mind. Like, I don't know what the agenda of the gentleman in Texas is, but he does seem to have a lot of and then I'll love to hear your thoughts about this. In my mind, a lot of repressive rules that he is trying to enforce, not just around COVID, but also around Roe versus Wade and around a number of other things that is making, and I know that that's one of your states in terms of your background and everything, but not making the Texas exactly someplace that I would want to run to and move. I'm definitely North Carolina born and bred and love my state. I don't know that I'd be trying to run to Texas based on some of the rules.
My family lives there. You know what? I love them all. Merry Christmas to all my family in Texas. I love you very, very much, but I'm scared to death of scorpions. And every time I go there, I run into scorpions. I might be one, but I literally run into scorpions every time I'm there. And so that prevents me from truly moving there. The way that they're politically being handled, it just shows me a man who has a issue with wanting to control people's lives. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, he wants to be in 100% control in women's lives and what we do and the decisions we make. He has to be in control of everyone's lives. I see a man who's probably not very confident in his own self and just taking care of his own self and making rules that are not state and church related. And I think that just shows the level of and lack of confidence that this leader has in his own self, that it's easier for him to start making laws to control everyone else. So, and he's not giving people the benefit of the doubt and the credit to make decisions that are for their own health and their own future. Right? I mean, this whole thing about controlling women, whether they can have an abortion at a certain time or not. I mean, we've created a huge problem of many, many children being abused. So I think he lacks the confidence in his own self. And so he feels like, well, I'll just control everybody else. I'm a man, I could do this. Please don't take this wrong, men. Not every man is like that. Many men have great and beautiful confidence in themselves, and they don't have to control women, but he does. He has to control the state. And for that, and I might have a lot of people hate me for saying this, but it's true. Look at the men who have a lot of confidence in themselves. They're not out trying to control everyone. They're out trying to make policies that bring us quality of life. Okay. They're out trying to solve the problem. They're not out there trying to create problems with the solution. They're not trying to combine state and church. They're truly trying to be the solutions. And these are the confident men. These are the men or women. There's more men in charge, unfortunately, but these are the men and women of our country, our leaders, who have the confidence in themselves. They're out fixing real problems. They're not trying to control people's lives. So that's my point of view about what's going on in some of these states where they're trying to say, you have to do this or you have to do that. People now are intelligent. Cutting me off now. I think people today have enough information and knowledge to make their own right decisions. If you want to wear a mask, you should wear a mask. Personally, if you've got a low immune system, I think you should have been wearing a mask before COVID. So, and my sister has said this many times. Well, we should have been cleaning our hands before COVID. But one of the things I want to mention to you, how you were discussing about the inconsistencies of what we should do when the pandemic first existed. I mean, at first it was stand 1 feet away. Well, come on, people, when you breathe, you spit comes out of you, moisture comes out of you 1 foot away. Then they go 2 feet away. Well, that distance is still there. 3 feet away. Well, golly gee. Then it became 6 feet. Okay. But here's what bothers me more than anything. They had the knowledge of what COVID is, what it can do to the human body for months before they started going, oh, we need to shut down. They knew all of this, but instead they were going, oh, don't worry, we got it under control. And then they're behind the scenes selling stocks and getting rid of all of their stuff that would bring them down when the economy drops. So they were protecting their assets, and they were protecting their families, not us. So they're not good leaders. The people in charge, even today, I don't see them as good leaders. And this is the reason why, because there is a drug out there that had been tested since 2015, maybe been developed prior to 2015, but human trials, no side effects that are significant. It was intended for healing the respiratory, like lungs, when they get pneumonia or your lungs just get deteriorated over time. All of the human testing proved that everyone healthy and had a lot of energy. They were becoming younger, not older. And this, of course, was tested in the elderly community with upper respiratory diseases. So I don't understand why that drug and our tax dollars paid for it. Like we paid for all of the development through CDC, WHO, and other things. And that drug comes off the shelf in November of 2019 for being FDA approved. And then all of a sudden we get hit with a pandemic. And then they come out with all of these other weird things that are not really healthy for the body, right? Like whatever Trump was pushing, remdesivir and the other hydroxychloroquine, all of that crap, when they actually have a pill that heals the body. Now they were trying to say, well, it won't prevent. Okay, fine. It doesn't prevent, but it will. And we know, and we have known since before COVID hit our country, what coronavirus will do to the lungs. It will tear it to pieces because it looks like a little porcupine ball that runs through your lungs, tearing it into a honeycomb. So if you can heal the lungs, why not push this pill? Why didn't we push it in the very beginning to help prevent an overload on the medical industry? We could have been giving people this medication then, but no, they pulled it. Now, all of a sudden, 2 years later, and a pandemic twice over now, a miracle drug at the pharma comes out. And I want to know, as a U.S. citizen, is that the pill that we paid for since 2015 with human trials that was working? Is that the components of that drug? I want to know, are they replicating the drug we paid for to make money off of it? And I want to know why they pulled that drug, because there were no side effects that were worth pulling it for. In other words, actually, the facts have proven that the worst side effect of RTB 101 was from the people taking the placebo, not the people taking the drug.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we got to find that out. And
I want to know why we think RTB 101, why it was not. Yeah, because that would fix all of this, Mark. That would fix the overload on the medical industry. That would prevent, that would protect us, heal us, probably make us healthier. And that would allow us to go back to work without concern, because we have the ability to heal our inside bodies with this drug. This drug has also been known to potentially cure Parkinson's disease. So I don't know if they're still testing that. But the fact is that you've got it. It's already there. It was ready for FDA approval. It was in the process, and then COVID hits and it's gone. So I you know what? I don't believe in coincidences, but I do believe in conspiracy theories. So I think that this was a way to control us, to put fear into us, and it's real. I think this COVID disease is real. I believe it's real. But I think that they withheld that drug so that they can monetize on it on their own at the peak of our fear, at the peak of our weakness when we're just so sick and tired of this. And I think that's wrong. And so personally, when the pharma comes out on with this drug, I want them to show us what's in there and compare it to RTB 101. And I want to know why we're not using, even trying to use RTB 101 when it had already been through human trials and past human trials since 2015 with your tax dollars, with my tax dollars, with your tax dollars. And that, my dear friend, was both Republicans and Democrats screwing you. That's not Biden. That was Trump. So, right. Hi, Stacy. Hi, how are you doing? What is happening with the supply chain and the economics?
Oh yeah, she was saying
the shelves are empty again. You know, I don't know if it, Stacy has a good point here. These are good topic subjects for tomorrow. I know that we are at the top of the hour and time
we're
to wrap.
At the top of the hour. We definitely had to bring that up. One of the other things I was going to bring up. And wow, she also was saying that, 2015 and incredible and all of that. So she was definitely bringing that up. And then we are at the top of the hour. The other thing, I'm going to have to talk to my friend, definitely Dean Geronimo, and see what he's got to say about the other story that I was getting to bring up really quickly and everything. And we'll talk about this tomorrow as well. But it's not just been a impact on the parts of our society that we expected to be out, which is, of course, the school system and the job market, but it's also impacting our prison system, because one of the things that was coming out in the news stories that I was talking about, and it was actually based in Newark, New Jersey, and I know that Dean is based in New Jersey as well, was there was a gentleman that went to jail on a charge of on a minor charge, and he left in a coma. And part of that was that he got involved. Apparently, he had schizophrenia and did not remember the brutal jail attack that left him in a coma for more than 2 months, and his mother had to go through a lot of very trying times dealing with his recovery and all of that. And there was a surveillance video of the assault shared on social media, and they showed what happened to this young man and everything. And now he's facing all kinds of health issues and all of that. And his attorneys are saying, of course, that there's got to be accountability. But the whole thing that it brings to limelight and everything, and that's part of the reason I'm going to get in touch with Dean and see what his thoughts are about that, because he works in the correction system, is that 2 years into a pandemic that raced largely unchecked through a tightly packed correctional facilities across the country, there are a lot of staff shortages at state prisons and county jails, and that has been intensified, leading to mandatory overtime and alarming gaps in security at places that are even notorious in the way that they are portrayed, like Rikers Island in New York City. So they are saying that 16 people have died this year within the New York correction system, mainly on the Rikers, and the city is moving ahead with plans to shut down the complex and replace it with smaller community-based lockups and all of that. And in Philadelphia, with a jail population 1/3 the size of New York, there have been 18 deaths this year. So we are seeing that this shortage of staff has impacted even the prison to school pipeline kind of stuff as well, because there are a lot of people that aren't able to have enough staff in places that need large staffs. Because I mean, Rikers has a large population, from what I understand, and some of the other places do as well. Like I said, my good friend Dean, that I do the audio podcast with, is definitely involved in that space. So he's been on at least one or two of our shows. So I'm gonna have to reach out to him and see if he can pop in and share some of his insights on this. And I know we'll be talking about it on the audio podcast, Straight Talk with Dean and Mark, at some time in 2022 and all of that. But you are right, we're at the top of the hour, but I just wanted to bring that concept in and everything, because we are seeing
don't forget to watch us tonight, folks. Tonight at 8 p.m. we're going to be hosting Who's the Worst President Ever. And it's a
That's right.
lot of fun topics and discussions, a lot of historical comments from very, very brilliant minds discussing about each president, why they were the worst. Personally, I prefer talking about the best, but apparently the public decided they would rather talk about the worst. So we are hosting the worst president ever discussions this evening at 8 p.m. on Pod TV. We thank you for watching, but I'm going to give this to Mark to wrap up.
Yep, definitely a great discussion. We're looking forward to that discussion and everything. Getting ready to get on out of here. And of course, we'll have some guests from the legal profession coming to talk about that with us. And I know that we've got some interesting candidates around this time, including people like definitely Obama's on that list. Definitely Trump is still on that list. We've got Andrew Jackson on the list as well. And then there is one other president that was featured as well. So those are the four that we'll be talking about, but I'm sure that there are others that will be included as well. So we'll be definitely having a great discussion, and folks will definitely be interested in their comments on the folks that are there and on that list and everything. So like I said, the other president that is still on the list is Carter. So like I said, we'll be primarily discussing this time around Trump, Obama, Andrew Jackson, and President Carter. So those are the four that we'll be discussing. And of course, we'll drop two off again and we'll pick two more. So that being said, we're going to add some more names as we continue marching all the way down until President's Day, when we will crown the worst of the presidents and all of that. So it is a process. And of course, we have discussions every Tuesday around that. So the last discussion of 2021 will be coming your way on this evening at 8 p.m. And definitely looking forward to that great discussion. And I know Nick will be joining that discussion. I believe Kim will be joining as well. And I'll be working on that with Steve and others. But right now, we're going to get on out of here. This has been a fun conversation. Hope that everybody enjoyed learning about different things. I know that I'm always fascinated when I learn about some of the things that even Big Pharma is doing and all of that. But right now, let's get on out of here. And of course, we'll be back on tomorrow and of course tonight at 8 o'clock with that discussion around the worst ever president and all of that. So let's get on out of here, and we'll catch you tomorrow in the Sense of the World edition. But hopefully we'll see you tonight in the sense of that special edition that is taking place on a consistent basis all the way up until the middle of February, when we have a President's Day and also get to crown who that person is. But right now, let's get on out of here.